Good Tuesday afternoon to you. Welcome to the John Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH. Pleasure to be with you and a pleasure to be with my co-hosts. That's right. Around the horn we shall go. Mr. Cory of Realty. How you doing, Big C?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very good. Very good. No
Love
complaints
it.
whatsoever. Dwight
Nice.
Millard on Q Home Loans. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, John. Every time I see the three of us, I think the boys are back in town,
There you go.
the
That
Thin
song.
Lizzy
Yeah.
song, right?
Boys are back.
Boys are
Yeah,
back.
exactly. Exactly. But I
Yeah,
understand. Okay. So it's you and I just on Thursday, Dwight, right? That's the
correct.
schedule for Thursday, speaking of which. Okay.
Yes. It's you and me.
Perfect.
Rock and roll.
Very good. Very good. Glad to hear it. Cory, how the heck's the real estate market doing right now?
It's holding in there. It'll be interesting to see. I'll pull the numbers maybe at the end of this week.
Yeah.
Just to get an idea, because it feels like things have slowed down a tad just with interest rates and all that.
Sure.
And the time of year, but we'll see if that's true or not.
I'm still on the data.
And it just goes back to, I harp on this all the time. If you price it right, it'll sell. If it doesn't, I'm seeing a lot of stuff that's just sitting there. And just kind of my shot across the bow. If you've been on the market for the last 60 to 90 days, you haven't done anything with your pricing, it doesn't get better from here forward.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up.
If you didn't sell it in May or June at that price, you're not going to sell it in July, August, September, October, November, or December.
Because like you said, we've peaked out seasonally, right?
Seasonally.
4th of July. Yeah,
sure.
4th of July.
Yep.
Perfect. Very good. Well, this ties in perfectly with our topic. Let me tell everybody what we have lined up for you this afternoon after I go through the stock market recap. We all know this, of course, that when we buy a home, we've done a few shows recently about this, the emotions can really get involved, right? We've all made that mistake, and yours truly absolutely has. Obviously, one of the biggest financial decisions you were ever going to make is making that decision to purchase that next home. But before you sign on that dotted line, before you sign that contract, we have put together a great list of the correct, let me repeat that, the correct questions that you need to be asking yourself, as well as the whole process. So today we're going to discuss about 10 of these questions that every single home buyer should answer before one of the largest investments is ever made in their lifetime. Cory, Dwight, just real quick poll out of both of you, because I haven't had a chance to ask you. Out of these 10 questions that you guys have put together, how many of these do you think, give me a percentage. How many of these do people really ask themselves? 10%, 50, 80? Cory, I'll start with you. What do you think the percentage is?
I would say at least 70%.
Really, that high? Okay.
And maybe they do it between themselves. Maybe they do it with their lender. A lot of this will go into, you're asking yourself, can I afford it? Can I budget it? All those questions. And then there are a lot of times, at least in my world, where I'm going to show a property and then they're going to go talk about it for a night or an hour or a minute, depending on the market. And so I'm sure those kind of questions come up because nobody ever gets exactly what they want. So they're trying to barter with themselves as, can I live with what is in front of me?
Yes. Okay. Higher than I thought. Dwight, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with Cory in terms of justifying. Well, here's what I think. I think Cory's correct on that, but I think that if you were to take maybe 8 out of the 10 or 7 out of 10, that number shrinks dramatically. I think it's now you're probably 40, asking a lot.
You lost me there.
Well, I'm saying that everybody will ask, gosh, can I afford this? Some of these questions, I think it's 70, 80%, like Cory said. But to go through some of these that we're going through,
right?
I think that number, some of the stuff, where am I going to be 5 years? My estate, have I budgeted for? I think that number goes down, but I think overall the basic questions that you should be asking, I think it's it's like Cory said, 70, not higher.
Right.
But you start to get in some deeper, we're going to go in a deeper dive, which I do believe that starts to minimize. I don't think people are thinking about some of this, and hence the reason we've talked in the past, and people run into problems.
Yep.
They didn't think of some of these. Yeah.
Yep. And as you'll find out, folks, some of these questions can really get you into trouble if you don't ask them. And most importantly, you don't answer them because you didn't ask them. So yeah, it's a very comprehensive list, and it's going to be great to go through that. So we'll title today's show, Are You Asking the Right Questions Before Buying a Home? All right. We're going to get to it quickly here because we got a lot to talk about. And the stock market side was pretty simple today. Not a lot of activity. Good solid session across the board, specifically on the Dow side of things. Struggle a little bit on the NASDAQ has been the theme here for the last couple of days. But the Dow, best level, we're up over 600. Didn't close too far off that. Finished with a gain of 537 on the Dow, 1.03% to a close of 52,747. NASDAQ lost 55 or 0.22%. And the S&P was up 16 points or 0.21%. Again, not a lot of real major movements. The gains on the Dow side really were driven by a couple of Dow components that had very good earnings numbers. First one that led the pack all day was Sherwin-Williams, the paint manufacturer. 8.25% gain, up $27 to $354.27. Again, very strong quarterly numbers, much better than expected. Another Dow component, not a real influential stock because it's a low price stock. I'm talking Coca-Cola. Finished at $88.27, but up $4.20, 5% higher. That's a big move for that stock. It usually doesn't move that much. But then we turn over to the negative side on the memory stocks again. That SK Hynix I've been talking about, that South Korean company that IPO'd a few weeks ago. Everyone seems to be looking at that as a barometer, and they sold off heavily in the Asian markets on the specifically on the memory stock side of things, and then that just carried forward to our numbers. I mean, we were down over 300 in the pre-market session, guys, and like I said, to finish the day with 55-point loss, not too bad. But that SK Hynix finished the day down 8.98%, $12.85 loss to $130.17. Had pretty good strength in Apple. It's continuing it to another record high. Yesterday was a record. Today was another record. Finished up $3.17, 0.94% to $340.08. Microsoft up about $4.25. The latest on the war situation, this was another factor. We had a nice pullback in oil, down $3.33. We broke $80 finally, finished at $79.32. And what kind of drove us, the oil was weak overnight, and then it kind of continued during the equity trading hours. But again, largest decline in crude that we've seen in quite some time. Reuters reported that Oman had presented Iran with a proposal for voluntary transit fees to the Strait of Hormuz that has the full backing of the Gulf states, supposedly. While a separate Reuters report said that China held direct discussions with the Houthis regarding safe passage through the Red Sea. So, it's interesting to see the Chinese involvement now. So those developments, again, help send the oil prices down.
John, who's going to pay a voluntary transit fee?
That's my point. That's why you heard the sarcasm in my voice.
Does it just sound good?
Let me give you a couple $1 million. Because remember, when we, for the 24-hour period or whatever it was, where we said we were going to charge, I did the numbers, it was going to end up $30 million. It would have cost us a super tanker, because it was based upon how many barrels of oil. We were going to charge them $30 million for a super tanker to go through the strait, just one way, not a round trip, but just one way. And then of course the world came together and said, Trump, you can't do this, and he backed out, like I said, 24 hours later or so. But before that, remember Iran said, we only charge $2 million. Ours is a much better deal. I mean, that's what they said. So so what's going to be the voluntary charge, Dwight, to your point? I don't know. I mean, what are they going to do? Hand around a pickle jar, at the opening of the strait or something, and you just deposit some money in there like you do at church or something. I don't know. The whole thing is just crazy. I don't believe one bit of it whatsoever, and especially with China being involved with it. So we'll see. But hey, market thinks oil's going down. Oil goes down. Stock market goes up. That's all I care about. Real quickly, guys, before we go to break, let's talk about the big event of tomorrow. Of course, tomorrow is going to be the Fed interest rate decision. The CME Fed Watch tool currently employing a 31.5% probability of a rate hike tomorrow. That's a little bit higher than what we've normally seen. So we'll just round it up, 32% probability. That number is really starting to climb, and I didn't want to give you a number, but it's significantly higher than this for a September interest rate increase. I think the last one I saw was about 65-70% as of early this morning. So we'll see. But of course, Cory, what's the most important thing of the Fed decision? It's what happens afterwards, right?
Do you have a Q&A?
The Q&A, exactly.
But that's like, we'll see, because Warsh, he's not very forthcoming with information.
No.
So we'll see how the Q&A goes. And I was listening to all this today, and it's like going into this meeting essentially blind, right? There's no, that's why you've got 32% saying yes. But then a lot of these guys were saying, some of the bond traders saying, if he does raise it, the bond market 10-year will probably come down because they'll call the markets bluff. So this is going to be very interesting to see what he does. And this is my personal opinion. If the rate goes up tomorrow, it's not going to be with a Warsh vote. I got to believe he votes no.
I agree.
And the committee goes against him, which would create a whole nother set of issues.
Oh, can you imagine if the committee went against a brand new Fed chairman? Oh my gosh. Right, Dwight? That'd be a whole nother mess. They haven't seen in a long time. So now I think you both are absolutely spot on. I think it'll just be, again, no interest rate change tomorrow. They'll talk about, I think it's going to be very similar to the previous meeting. I can't believe the meeting's already here. It seems like it was just here, the previous month's meeting. But I think it's just going to be worse, just saying more of the same. Inflation's a problem. We're watching it. And I think if he is thinking that he wants to get in an interest rate increase before the end of the year, September is probably the best time to do it. What they're saying right now is September interest rate increase, and then a cut in the October or November or December meeting. So just to kind of, to use your analogy, a shot across the bow saying, hey, I'm in control. I'm the new sheriff in town, and see what happens there. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Like I said, the Q&A is always going to be it, but we'll see. We'll see what the market's reaction is of it. But at this point, earnings are the number one factor. Oil prices coming down. That's the other thing he's building up nicely is this little war chest of oil. Now that we broke 80, that's a very significant number. Now that we broke 80, 79.32 a barrel. Like I said, that's very much in the favor of the Fed not having to raise rates. So yeah, we'll have a good time tomorrow on the show. I promise you that. All right, we come back. You're caught up to date. We'll hit the interest rate side. We're going to hit the commodity, gold specifically. Dwight will bring us up to date on the mortgage side, and then we will get into our topic. Once again, are you asking the right questions before buying a home? Welcome back to the John Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH with Dwight Millard of OnQ Home Loans and, of course, Cory Edge of Edge Realty. Once again, a great day on the Dow side. Struggled a bit on the NASDAQ. We finished with a gain of 537 on the Dow. NASDAQ lost 55, S&P up 16. All right, to the commodity side, then we'll get into the real estate. Again, down $3.33 on oil, $79.32 a barrel, $38.50 loss on gold, $4,037.90 an ounce. And Mr. Millard, a 4 basis point decline on the 10-year. Yield closed 460. How did we do in the 30-year mortgage world?
Well, John, we're still stuck in this high 6 range, but you got a little relief today. What was amazing is the mortgage-backed securities opened up really, really strong this morning and stayed there. Basically, to your point, all about the oil and the mortgage-backed securities were up 28 basis points, so that transferred over to a 6.76, down 4 basis points on a 30-year fixed, according to Mortgage News Daily. So you can just see, I mean, the word of the day is stubborn. It's just stubbornly high. Yeah. I mean, and we were used to brag about the FHA and VAs being in the fives. Well, they're at 6.32 and 6.34. So, and your 15 years, 6.31. So we are, again, uncomfortably in the sixes, and so I noticed a pullback in the last probably 10 days ever since we restarted that campaign and oil went up, pullback in activity.
Interesting.
Yeah. Just people are just and they're negotiating. What's interesting is they're negotiating a price, new construction, they're negotiating a price, and then they start to see these rates go up and they've paused it. So it's not everybody, but it's enough out there that these people are paying attention to these rates right now. They are paying attention to them.
I think psychologically too, when you're saying 6.75%, the mind automatically goes to 7%, right? And even though it's pretty significant difference between 6.76 and 7, but psychologically, I think that's the other thing that's weighing on people right now. It's like, man, they can't stay at these levels. They got to come down. I'm gonna jump on them then. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we were talking several weeks ago about how the concessions were so high, remember?
Right.
And then as the rates come down a little bit, the concessions can kind of pull back a little bit, either from sales price or from, buying down the rate and closing costs. But now that we just had this run up, now I'm seeing the concessions back up there. I've got a client today who wants to knock $60,000 off the sales price and $25,000 in concessions.
Wow.
That's an $85,000. But I'm just saying, these concessions, these builders are dying for these concessions to go away.
I bet they
to not have to keep paying, but you get a run up again in rates. That doesn't go away. As a matter of fact, the concessions amount increased, John. So a lot of them were doing 15 and 20, and now they're doing 25 and 30.
Well, speaking of concessions and publicly traded builders, Cory, you wanted to chime in regarding an interview you saw with Pulte. I was at a meeting. I saw him up on my screen, but I didn't get a chance to listen. So bring us up to date on that, as well as your conversation with a local developer.
It wasn't Mr. Pulte, because he's running the intelligence agencies, I think. But the CEO, and I just caught it. I was listening to it, and some of the numbers he was saying caught me off guard. So I went back to the report and read through their earnings report. There, like we were talking about off air, he said on this interview, which I did a double take and had to check with it, their average cost to build a house, sticks and bricks, not land, not anything else, just sticks and bricks, $75 a square foot.
Amazing.
Which to me sounded insanely low, like almost.
Yeah,
did he forget to put a 2 or a 3 on front of that? Because it makes sense. Exactly. But when you read their earnings report, that is what it is. And so I went back 10 years and looked at it, and I think in 2016 I went from about $45 a foot to a high during COVID of $95 a foot, and has since come down to $75 a foot, which is crazy. coming from.
But they got to be squeezing the subs then, right? They got to be squeezing the subs.
You got to imagine the amount of scale that they have to buy their lumber and all their stuff. Now, all their other costs, their land, their development, their sidewalks, all the other stuff is $95. So they're in the house, the finished product, $170 a foot, which is still incredibly low.
When we do our local report, we're at what, 380,
350, 380, 400, yeah.
Right.
And those are for used homes.
And that's my point. I was just going to say that those are for used homes.
And I was with a gentleman. Go ahead.
This last follow up on that. Now that's an average corporate wide, so around the country.
Correct.
So that would take into account for high end markets like California and maybe a low end market somewhere in the Midwest, et cetera. Right. So
correct.
Average,
but still, it just seemed like an incredibly low number. But it's unless they're lying to Wall Street, which I'm sure they're not. Like,
can I ask both of you this question? And I honestly don't know it, so I don't know what your answer is going to be. You just said something a second ago. You said lumber prices and all that stuff, that how they were able to buy in quantity, but unless something changed from when I was in the construction trade, when I was a very young man, they hire let's say on the framing, they hire a framing contractor who then is responsible for buying the lumber. Has that changed? Are you saying that the home builder goes out and uses their negotiation power and strength, balance sheet strength, to say buy the lumber, and then they just hire the framing contractor for we'll call it the labor side of it?
Well, I don't want to pretend like I know how all these big boys work, but my assumption is yes, they use their guerrilla power, strength, and balance sheet to get the lowest price possible.
Yeah.
And then bring in the
they might even own part of them, I mean, the lumber. You just don't, you just don't even know.
That's the other thing. But some of these numbers are interesting. So speaking of concessions, their average concession for Q2 was 10.4%, which equated to $56,000 per house.
That's what Dwight was saying. Yeah.
And that has been there for about the last 3 years. On par over the last 15 years, it's 3%. So as Dwight mentioned, this is, a 7% increase just to deal with what's happening in the mortgage market right now to keep and like we've talked about, these builders need to keep the cash spinning.
Yes.
So their net profit margin is, at least with these guys, 10%, 9%, somewhere in there. But it's more important to keep the wheels turning and keep the dollars spinning. So they'll let that fluctuate a little bit.
So why hasn't the Trump administration done something, especially when you have a Pulte running the organization, right? Running it for the government, running the housing unit for the government. I just don't understand why we haven't heard anything out of the Trump administration as far as, anything major.
But what's he going to do? He's already tried to fire the Fed officials and the Fed, governor. And if they go against Warsh tomorrow and raise a rate, he'll probably fire the entire Fed and just take it over himself. And that'll
but I'm
talking
Supreme
deeper.
Court. I mean, why
is he going to do?
The administration coming up with some type of creative idea to make housing more affordable and obviously, get more people moving, because it's the benefit of everybody.
I mean, the only thing I can think of off the top of my head is to get rid of the capital gains tax on the sale of the house, just completely do away with it so they can get some inventory flowing. But I think if you flood it with inventory, that'll bring the prices down, but it may bring the builders like a Pulte, their costs down. So their net margins might widen even though their sales price comes down, or a government backstop.
John, John, you could go, we've talked about this, you can go deep into the agencies. Why is Fannie and Freddie still start charging level loan price adjusters, right? Just add-ons. To make $17 billion a year. You're right. I don't know if that would be the end-all be-all cure. Why is FHA still charging 1.75 upfront mortgages? Well, those are little things, but I just don't. It's
like ATMs for the government.
Yes,
correct.
Yes, yeah. And I just don't know that it makes a big dent in the overall scheme. But to your point, it's just what. But that
But what if you took? I don't know. Let's say the government's making $50 billion between all the different agencies a year. What if you took that and plowed it back into programs, right? Loan subsidy programs, point subsidy, whatever your imagination allows you. Bottom line, you're plowing.
But John, we already done that, and it doesn't really move the needle. Unfortunately, it doesn't move the needle because typically with those they put a lot of restrictions on those. John, you're right. You'd have to reduce the restrictions. Hey, what's the income limitations, the sales price? There's all those kind of things on there that prevent that from being very successful. But the bigger problem is if you take a Pulte at 100, whatever it was, 75 or whatever it was, a square foot to build, how does a regional or local builder compete? Because you got to believe D.R. Horton's kind of still, Lennar's probably still, I don't know what their numbers, but they got to be similar.
Sure.
And so how does our friends in the local
the guy building 5
marketplace
houses a year or something,
compete, or even 100? You're compete with they can give the concession and still make money.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
These guys give concessions, they lose money.
This guy, I mean, he was talking about how great the market is, how much money he was not complaining. He was happy. And the problem, if you start doing government handouts, if you do some kind of stipend to help these builders so that they don't have to cost as much, they're not going to lower the price of the house. They're not going to, you know what I mean?
No, I'm not saying put money in the builder's pocket. I'm saying help the consumer.
The consumer.
Help the consumer.
Well, the builder's already helping the consumer, so the consumer's just fine. You know what I mean? He was happy. Again, it was a very good interview, a very upbeat, like this market's fantastic. Not fantastic, but he was not complaining.
Yeah. Very, very few CEOs that go on CNBC do complain. It's always rainbows and butterflies. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. Real quick, Cory, when we come back, you had a great discussion with a local high-end developer. I want you to share that information with the audience. Then we'll get into our topic. Are you asking the right questions before you buy a home? Welcome back to the John Sanchez Show on Newstalk 780 KOH with Cory Edge, Realty, and Dwight, Millard of UnQ Home Loans. All right, boys, let's get down to it. But Cory, you had a very interesting interview today, or not interview, but a conversation with a local developer. I want you to share that, and then we're going to get to our topic.
Yeah, really nice guy. I've known him for a while. Builds very high-end homes, and not just one at a time, multiple at a time. I ran into him last year and we had a conversation, and it was not going well. He had 2 very expensive spec homes that had been sitting there, hadn't sold anything else. I talked to him for quite a while this morning, just ran into him again. Both the spec homes sold, the land is selling, and these are multi-million-dollar properties. And he goes, I don't know what's happened in the last 90, 120 days, but everybody wants them. And so I don't know. I mean, this goes back to your world. I don't know if this is all this AI money, these lockups on
Of course.
Somebody's buying all this stuff. But to give you an idea, we were talking about Pulte, $75 a home, sticks and bricks on average. His sticks and bricks cost are roughly $600 to $700, to give you an idea of what it costs to build here in Reno for high-end things.
So 3,000 square foot house, you're 2.1 million starting before.
That doesn't count all the other stuff, but it kind of is like we've been saying, the high end of this market is doing incredibly well, and it's pulling that price up.
I've shared this with you guys, and then we'll get to our topic. For some reason, I just got this gut feeling that we've been discovered, right? I know that sounds so stupid, right? We've always been on this side of the Sierras. California has always been on the other side. But I think because of the Democratic programs, i.e., trying to push for the billionaires tax, so on and so forth, these wealthy, and I'm not talking just billionaires, I'm talking, multimillionaires and things. They're like, why am I here? Why am I here? I shared a story with you guys. I had a client, I've worked with him for, probably the last year, trying to time selling his incline home. They've been there a long time, pretty good size home, 30,000 square feet or so. Finally, we got to the point, helped him with everything, got a great agent up there. Sucker sold in 2 days. Full cash offer, everything. People coming in from out of town, East Coast, come in. When they were doing their walkthroughs, they show up with a new architect, an interior designer, and basically are going to rip this thing down to nothing and start all over. And he said, they're probably going to be looking at another $2 to $4 million besides the, I'll say between 2 to 3 million that he sold the house for. So these people are coming in ready to spend $5 million to live in incline, but they're from the East Coast where taxes are considerably higher. But we're hearing all this, right? But then I think it's obviously a little bit lower level of wealth is then finding it here in Reno and our area, because it's nothing for these people now to go spend $1.5–2 million, right? Where that used to be. I remember, Cory, years ago when you used to do the report, it's like, oh my God, we sold $1 million house. It's just, it was so far. Now it's almost seems like some of your reports is geez, are we selling more of those than we are the medium $600,000–700,000 ones? So I think it's just, to your point, it's just a demographic shift. I think people are finally starting to realize what a gem of a place that we live at, and especially for those up at the lake. I see Tahoe is, I don't know where those prices are going to stop up there. I really don't, but It's been discovered.
But John, to your point, when people think of Nevada, especially on the East Coast, you can even get in the Midwest.
Yeah.
They think Vegas, and I don't know if you saw the report today. Vegas has the biggest adjustment downward in pricing. That's what they think of. And you're right. Maybe now they're discovering, hey, not everything is Vegas.
Yeah.
And this is a quality place to live.
Real quickly, I'll share a conversation I had yesterday. I was speaking with a future client of Specialized Trust, and he just moved out from New York, moved to Northwest Reno, one of the higher end retirement communities there. Moved out from New York, and the guy's in the world of tech. He's about 55 years old, so he still has a lot of working years left. But he's like, I finally woke up one day and I'm like, why am I in New York? What am I doing here? Shut down his business there. He's self-employed, shut down his business there. Came out here. He's like, look at what I bought. I have no state income tax now. And he's on cloud nine. So how many hundreds or thousands of people are like that where the word's getting out? I mean, I don't remember, maybe you guys do. I don't ever remember people moving out here from New York, right? Now,
no.
We're seeing more and more of it. You're getting a lot of big money managers that are moving up to the Tahoe area. Obviously they can afford it. Yeah, it's fascinating to see, for the good and for the bad, right? For the good and the bad. But I won't be surprised if, Cory, if we, in the next 3-4 years, when we do our report, we're saying median price, not 619, but 819, 919. I mean, I think it's just a matter of time. I really do, because California's chasing everybody away. So this is easy to come over here. And like he said, he goes, right over the mountain from Silicon Valley, where he does a lot of work and so on and so forth. So it's finally been discovered, unfortunately.
Yeah, I hear you.
For those of us that have been raised here.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to our topic. Are you asking the right questions before you buy a home? So the first one, we don't need to spend a lot of time, because this is what the boys were referring to earlier. This is one of the most basic ones, right, Dwight? Can I comfortably afford this home? You're going to say, can you officially afford this home? They're going to say, can I comfortably? Talk on that one.
Yeah. First of all, John, I'm going to ask a question. What does your budget tell you, right? Number one. But the other thing is that what I qualify you for and what you actually can afford month in, month out are two different things. So be comfortable, have some disposable income. You've got to be very careful. We talked about homeowners insurance. It's a very wild card these days. HOA dues, there seem to be everywhere now. So you got to kind of plan for that in the market. And maintenance, that's the unexpected, right? I mean, everybody knows maintenance. I got to mow a lawn or whatever, but a pipe busting or something like that, it gets into big, so those are just things. If you're not saving now, renting, you think you're going to be able to save when you're buying a house. I don't know, especially, your new payment versus your old.
You're going to save money when you have a kid. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So just do the litmus test. Do the litmus. Be real with yourself.
Dwight, you've said it every time. Let's hit it one more time. The budget. Very few people have a budget. How many people do you meet with, Dwight, that truly say they have a budget?
0.
Yeah, me too. I'd say maybe 10% if I'm lucky. 10%.
A real budget. Maybe it might say
the real one. Yeah, and those are the ones that I see that have the biggest.
Most people don't know what they make, John. Most people I talk to don't know what they make.
That's right. All right, Cory. Next one's you. I love this point you made up. Am I buying the right house, or is it just the house that I fell in?
Yeah, and this goes back to those conversations where, for instance, in my world, we'll be showing houses, or I'll be showing a house, find something that if I've got a couple, they both like, but then they're going to go away and talk about it for an hour or a day or however long they need to talk. And those are always the discussions. I went through this last month with some dear friends of mine, looked at a house. They wanted to think about it for the night because it wasn't in the future. It could have everything they wanted, but it didn't have it now. So they had to debate over, do we want to go through the house, turning this into the house? And we have a nice house now. So do we want to uproot ourselves, but we're going to have more kids? And, all these discussions. I think it breaks down, John, buyer by buyer by buyer. Some people, they have a list. If it crosses off 85% of their list, they're in. Or some people need to sit back and think because they do look more long-term. How many kids are we going to have? What schools do we want to be in? Where are you going to work? Like all these different things.
Sure. Love it. All right. Let's squeeze in number 3 before we go to break. Cory, this is back to you also. How long do I plan to live here? Right? That's something I never thought about that before. In real estate I've bought, but what a great question.
No, and it's usually, I think on average, it used to be 7 years. I don't know what it is now with the low interest rates, but I'm sure it's much longer. But that's where you get, especially, I don't want to say first time buyers, but the younger generation where they're starting a family or maybe they have a small family, they start thinking about school district and transportation. And if we have more than one child, we don't want him or her to ride the bus. So how are we going to, break up and get everybody to school? that seems to be the discussion that everybody has, because work is pretty easy now. Everybody can get around.
Yep.
Hospitals aren't a big deal at that point, but school is a big thing. So most people I talk to in the beginning stages of families always anticipate they'll look at the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school, anticipating that they're going to be there for
From
the
elementary through
lifespan.
high school. Yeah.
Correct. So call it 18 years or more. That's always the plan. Who knows if it works out.
And then, of course, the flip side, for those that are retirees or soon to be, they start thinking about the healthcare, right? They're looking down the road.
Exactly.
Geez, does this thing have stairs, right? Do I, or not, and how close am I to healthcare? And a lot of those different factors. But yeah, take the time. How long do I plan to live here? No one knows what the future is, but try to approximate. All right. When we come back, just write down Dwight's alley. You don't want to miss this one. How much do I put down? There's a big misconception out there. A question you absolutely have to ask. Welcome back to the John Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH. Mr. Cory Edgeved, Realty, phone number
673-6700.
Dwight Millard on Q Home Loans, phone number.
Yes, sir. 240-2022.
Beautiful. And as a quick reminder, I want you to join me for my webinar tomorrow evening. Cannot wait. Counting down the hours. Is your trust outdated? That's right. It's not just about the date. We're going to reflect on, does it still have your family's wishes? Is it up to date with the current tax laws, your financial situation? You're going to learn the warning signs that your trust may need a review, restatement, or just start the whole thing fresh. I had one the other day, Cory, I thought about you because you do a lot of estate planning stuff. So old. And the guy's like, I don't care about the name anymore. I don't care about anything. Just start it over because it's a disaster. Sure. And like, you come across that once in a while. But this is, again, one of the biggest issues we're finding right now. People think their trust is all up to date, when in reality, after we review it and we put it into our AI models, there's all kinds of problems. And these are things we're going to highlight tomorrow. Again, free educational webinar tomorrow night, 6:00. Just go to our website, specializedtrust.com, click on the Step Learning Institute, and you'll see the sign up for the webinar tomorrow evening, again, 6 to 7. And again, as a reminder, I haven't counted yet, so I don't know the number, but as I made the offer to all of you on Friday, I guess it was, for those of you that do have an existing trust and you sign up for the webinar, the first 25 people, I'm going to do a free trust review for you. It's usually a $1,200 value, but that's my way of saying thanks for joining the webinar, and let's see how many of you we can help. So just go to specializedtrust.com. All right, back to our topic, guys. Again, we got just a couple minutes here, but we need to really get this one down. Dwight, speaking of down, how much should I put down? So much misconception on this. Major question you need to ask yourself.
Yeah, John. So the quick answer is, if you've got high credit scores, 5% down on conventional, keep your cash. That's not going to make a whole lot of difference in your payment. I know that people like to get rid of MI, but if you've got high credit scores, the MI is insignificant. If you don't have great credit scores, 3.5 FHA if you're still in the loan limits, an automatic VA if you've earned it, then use it. If you're a veteran, 0 down, but I like lower down, John. They can get further with their cash somewhere else than locked up in a house.
You're not going to find too many mortgage professionals that give that advice. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job. Cory, next question. Have I budgeted for the hidden cost? I think we kind of covered this one, but let's just hit some of the high points that you see where people really, once they move in, they call you and go, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to cost this much for utilities or window coverings or a brand new home and landscaping, right? All these things that, nothing's cheap anymore. Nothing.
Well, those are all the costs that you kind of hopefully know about. The window coverings, I got a landscaping, this and that. It's the stuff you don't think about. Like, you're so used to calling the landlord to take care of it, and you have no idea what it costs because the landlord always took care of it. But if you have a roof problem, if you get a plumbing leak, I helped my neighbor on Saturday because his main plumbing line going into his house burst somewhere out in the yard. So we had to get the tractor out and dig a big old hole so we could find it. Like, just all these things. I mentioned this on the show a few years ago, but somebody had told me, and I thought, man, that's a great thing. When you are a tenant, the rent is the most you'll ever pay for living expense. Whatever your rent is, that's the max. When you become an owner, whatever your mortgage is, that's the least amount you'll pay.
That's a great
It will always go up. There's always going to be more.
Yeah.
So I don't have an exact number like what you should budget for, 10% a month, 20, whatever. Just have some kind of rainy day account because something will go wrong. And it usually happens in threes. So be ready for it.
That's true.
Well, and that just ties into a lower down payment, John, for those, because otherwise, like we talked about earlier, you're going to use credit cards, and then you can't get out of that mess either.
You're right. All right, guys, let's go to question number 6. Should I keep my current home as a rental, Cory?
It depends on the house, right? If you have a current house, you're going to move in, you don't need to pull all the equity out of it to get the new one. And this is my opinion. The house sets up as a decent rental, then yeah, what's the harm? if you have a big, beautiful house, you've taken immaculate care of it, you're out there cutting the grass every 2 days to make it look beautiful, it may not be the best candidate as a rental. I was with a client a couple months ago and he asked me that question, and his uncle happened to be standing next to me and goes, "Are you freaking crazy? Why would you want to be a landlord? Like, sell it, take the money." And so
Take the money and run.
It's not an automatic rule, but if you have, the traditional little rental house, it's not the worst thing.
Right. Exactly. All right. I'll handle the next one, which is, does this home support my retirement goals? And it's very important to understand this because, again, you got to look at the expenses that you're going to have in retirement, maintaining your home, maybe your current one, a big home, 4-bedroom. You got, 3 out of the 4 bedrooms. The doors are closed all the time. So you need to, again, this is where we get into on the retirement plan. We get into the monthly cash flow, the retirement savings. What's the opportunity cost of the money? People fail to remember that side of it. And again, flexibility. Cory, I love your analogy. You say over and over again, how nice is it to be able to just, say you had a condo, shut the door and go on your go on your month cruise and not worry about a doggone thing. Can't really do that with a house. Something like a condo or something you can. Question number 8. I'm just going to run through the rest of these guys. Question number 8, is my emergency fund still intact after moving in? Next question, is my estate plan ready? Well, we can talk all day about that one. And number 10, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Right, Dwight?
Absolutely. Absolutely. John, ask a lot of questions because the answers will reveal what you need to do.
Indeed. All right, boys. Excellent job as always. We will do it again tomorrow on the John Sanchez Show. Fed interest rate decision. Don't miss it. Estate Planning Wednesday. Also, I'll be adding all that into it. God bless. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. All right. God, that flew by.
And that went fast.
Yeah.
That one.
So you're here for a week, Dwight?
Yeah, but I only go back for 2 days and we're back for like 3 weeks. So it's a complicated August.
Yes.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's a complicated August. September mellows out a little bit. October, November, I don't know. But before, next year will be here before we know it, and we'll figure it out from there.
I look at the calendar today. I'm like, even though I write the date down a million times, like, holy shit, July's over.
Yeah.
July's over.
It is crazy. Crazy.
Cory, you're going to be fighting the snow over Donner Summit before you know it.
I'm going to be watching Christmas movies soon.
Hey, so I think I can tell you guys. So I'm going to be a grandpa.
You're kidding?
Nice.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
On which side?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah, which side?
Kaden, not Trent.
Nice.
She's back in school. Yeah, so she's about a little over a month along. It was interesting because we had Father's Day, and they gave me a little gift. Well, they came over for dinner, and they go, "Oh yeah, we had another Father's Day come in for you," and I get it, and you open it, it was a shirt that said "Popo" on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, oh yeah. Well, they came up and told her parents, and then I think Gina got married last weekend.
You're kidding?
No, I didn't even put 2 + 2 because I'm just kind of dense. I'm just in my own world. Yeah. I took all 4 of them to the airport, and I just thought one of them would have volunteered. I was wondering why they were all going, and then Emma, Caden's wife, posted a picture on Facebook, and he had a boutonniere on. And then my sister told me, "Yeah, what do you think about Gina getting married?" I go, "Oh, didn't think about. I haven't thought about her in a couple of years. I don't care."
Right. Do you know anything about the guy?
Well, it's a guy that she liked. Liked, early on in the, so it's good for her, if that's what makes her happy. He's, I don't know, but yeah.
Is it the same guy from Trans Graduate?